Good day, everybody. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you watched some NFL games because that's what we're going to talk about here. This is Side Talk. My name is Scott, and we're going to talk about a lot of the NFL games that happened this weekend. And we'll assess some of the storylines and things that happened and look at where the teams are and what they need to do for next week as they come on into the third week of the NFL season. So stay tuned. This is Side Talk, NFL edition. All right, welcome back to Side Talk NFL Edition. Again, my name is Scott. I'm hosting alone today. I don't have anybody and guests. Unfortunately, my executive producer is telling me that I should just go ahead and do this on my own because, nobody likes me anymore. So I have to do this on my own. But anyway, look, let's run through some of the headlines. A lot of stuff happened this weekend, a lot of good games and a lot of nail-biter games happened this weekend in the NFL. And I think we're going to have some fun talking about some of these things. All right, so first of all, let's go with these headlines. First of all, Miami and the Giants, both teams improved in their play. However, they still lost, and Miami's coach is still on the hot seat. And New York's defensive coach is definitely on the hot seat. So there's a lot of things that still need to improve, even though they got better. But it's the second game of the season. Go Giants. I think they'll make something of themselves. I don't know about Miami, but we're watching. Yeah, so we got a new golden foot guy or golden boot guy. This kicker, Brandon Aubrey, has a hell of a boot. He was able to kick two game winners. First of all, he kicked a 68-yard field goal kick like it was nothing, and sending the game for the Giants versus the Cowboys into overtime. And then he hit the game winner in overtime, handing over his team the victory. So I'm sure he's on cloud nine right now. So Brandon Aubrey, hats off to you. You're pretty good, man. The Bears need work on the defense, and they need a little bit of work on that running game. They need to get a bit more dynamic. I think that's one of the things that's hurting them and putting a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams, but we'll talk about it more. Daniel Jones and the Colts are a real threat, and they're a real threat early. So every AFC team needs to watch out for them. These guys are not joking. They came in to play, and they played very well this weekend over in Indianapolis versus the Broncos. The Chiefs they're also a team that needs a functional running game to contend because they don't have all their weapons, their receivers. A lot of the guys are injured or suspended. And so right now they need more explosive plays. And I think they need to get that through having a pretty good running game. I know Andy Reid doesn't like running games, but you're going to need to use it to, one, control the clock, two, take the will away from your opponents. But we'll talk about that more a little bit. The Bengals season is clouded by Joe Burrow's injury. So Joe Burrow, if you don't know, is injured, probably out for the whole season. We're not exactly sure yet, but he's going to be at least out for a while. And this is like a common thing with him every 2 years. He gets injured and then he's out for a long time, and then Browning has to take over. So there's a cloud over their season. We were saying, hey, look, Joe Burrow is a MVP contender, but now that he's injured, I don't know if that's happening anymore, and how effective can they be? But there is history with Browning, so watch out. We'll talk about that later in a little bit. Bills remain on top of their division, which is the AFC East, and the Jets kind of regressed a little bit. We'll talk about that when we talk about the Bills-Jets game. It's a bit... the Packers are heating up early. I don't want them to peak too early, but their defense is really looking good. They have some edge to them on that defense. So I think they're pretty good. So, let's see what happens. All right. We're now going to go into the first game that we're going to talk about. The first game we're going to talk about is the Patriots versus the Dolphins. So this should be interesting. I'll give you the scores and a bit of the storylines about this game, because it was really interesting. One thing though is the Dolphins played a lot better. They played like they had pride. They played a lot better. I think that they're still lacking a little bit of confidence, so they're making a couple of mistakes here and there. And that's why I think they lost this game. So the score was Patriots 33, Dolphins 27, and it was the Patriots at the Dolphins. So they were in Miami in Hard Rock Stadium, and you expect your team, the home team, to try to win these games. The home games are very critical because when you go on the road, it's a lot more difficult to win road games, except if you're a significantly better team. And still, this is the NFL. Home teams have good home team advantage. Like there's more bite in them for that. So look, Drake May played pretty well. He was very effective, made some mistakes here and there, but he was generally calm, had a good passing percentage. He threw 19 out of 23 for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was pretty good with the rock, man. He wasn't just throwing it anywhere. He was pretty accurate with the rock. And he also rushed for 1 touchdown. Tua played a lot better this game. I think last game, in the first game versus the Colts, he threw for like 100 and something yards. No, he did a lot better. He was also efficient. He threw for 315 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have a costly mistake and a costly pick in the fourth quarter, which Marquez Mapu of the Patriots intercepted, and this was quite critical for them in the fourth quarter, and I believe this is part of the reason why they lost. Now, we had a little bit of special teams extravaganza in this game, which I really liked. I love seeing punt returns returned. I love seeing kick returns returned. It's great stuff. Very entertaining for the game. And we had it was basically back-to-back. So the first one was, I believe, the late third quarter, early fourth quarter. I believe it's the fourth quarter still. Malik Washington, wide receiver from Miami, was punt return duties. He returned a punt for 75 yards. And it was crazy. It was a great punt return, right? 75 yards and a touchdown, man. It was great. Then almost immediately after that, on the kick return, Antonio Gibson, who I've never seen return kicks, and I think maybe he's found his niche in the NFL. He's a running back for the Patriots, and he ran back that kick return. He, returned that kick for 90 yards. It was quite amazing. And it was just after Washington had already scored a touchdown on 75-yard punt return. So it was really, really, and everything was happening in the third and the fourth quarter. They were revving it up, right? Ramondre Stevenson was fantastic in this game. Devon Achane played okay for the Dolphins, but they didn't, Patriots didn't really give him too much leeway. But Ramondre Stevenson showed that he's an every down back by having a total of 142 all-purpose yards, 55 rushing, 88 receiving. I mean, the other day we were talking about this, rookie from Ohio State coming in to take the job of the receiving running back, but Stevenson was like, nah, I got hands too. I got hands. Just throw me the ball, man. I got you. So he's making himself more valuable, Ramondre Stevenson, and he's looking quite good. I like that. Some crucial plays that happened in this game that kind of tilted the win towards the Patriots, or the game toward the momentum towards the Patriots. I mean, it was a sack by Harold Landry on Tua Tagovailoa. This was in the fourth quarter. Yeah, it was in the fourth quarter. Basically sealed their fate. And also that late fourth quarter interception that Tua threw. Look, I think Tua's building his confidence back, but he's not fully there. I think the whole Dolphins team is kind of a little bit down with confidence, because they're hearing the noise outside, and there's a lot of pressure on all of them. There's a pressure on the coach. There's the pressure on the quarterback, Tua, because he got paid $230 million a few years ago, and he's been considered like a very injury-prone guy, because if you hit him, he might have a concussion. And concussions, they come easier the more you get them. So if you get a concussion now, the next concussion is going to come a lot easier than the previous one. So, I'm sure he hears that. A lot of people are worried about him whenever he gets hit or whenever he runs. So people worry about him. And look, he's got to build himself back up, and he's mending his relationship. He still has a good connection with Tyreek Hill, who also caught the ball. I think he got 6 balls for 107 yards receiving, which was a lot better than the first game. So I think they're starting to find their feet. I think that they'll probably start peaking in 5 games, or at least hit where they're supposed to be in about 4 to 5 games. So 4 games in, by week 5, they should be good. But there's still a lot of confidence building that needs to happen. And just stay focused and forget the noise, Dolphins. You guys will get out of it. But look, the Patriots did pretty well. I think they are pretty good on defense, and they made less mistakes in this game, which allowed them to be able to get the win, snatch the win away from the Dolphins at home. So, look, I think Vrabel is a great coach, and he will coach you to stop making mistakes. So I think watch the Patriots to get a lot better as the season goes in. They'll play more mistake-free football. That's the kind of guy Vrabel is. He's from the Belichick, tree, and then he also got coached by some other guys. But Vrabel's a great guy and great coach. All right, on to the Giants and the Cowboys. Now listen, I am a Giants fan, all right, New York Giants fan. And yes, my cousins always tell me, you were a Jets fan first. Yes, I was when I was much younger. But then I decided, I learned about the Giants. I started studying their history. And so I'm a diehard Giants fan, 20 years, 24 years strong. I hope I haven't given up my age too much. But anyway, Giants, Cowboys, this was in Texas at the AT&T Stadium, the Cowboys Stadium. It was a very good game. Combined points in this game, and 41 of which were scored in the fourth quarter. It was 40 to the Cowboys and 37 to the Giants. I really hate that. I really hate the Cowboys a lot. And if you know me, you'll find the irony in it because I was born in Texas, but I hate the Cowboys. Anyway, look, Russell Wilson redeemed himself, but I also think that even though he did throw for 450 yards, I mean, because the guy was just throwing moon balls. I think he threw like 5 moon balls to Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, and everybody redeemed themselves this game. I think that first of all, there's like both defenses were terrible, right? So the Cowboys have a problem with they have issues with pass defense ever since they lost Bland to injuries, Deron Bland, who they just paid 90 something. And I was just saying that look, this guy, you paid him 90 something, which you should pay him. He's very good, but he's injury prone, right? So I don't know how much guarantee they gave that, but yeah. So without Deron Bland, they're kind of open on the pass in the pass defense, and they don't have a pass rusher now because they traded Micah Parsons. So Giants played a lot better. The offense played a lot better. The defense played like in reverse. So last week, the defense wasn't so bad. In the first game, wasn't so bad against the Commanders, and the offense was terrible, never even scored really. I mean, it scored 2 kicks or whatever, but they didn't score a touchdown. But this game, they scored several touchdowns, right? And if you score 37 points in the NFL, you usually win the game. But they had so many mistakes. They had this guy, Hudson, was an O-lineman, and he had like 6 fouls, 6 penalties called on him, and it was the equivalent of 140 yards, which is like a record. So they had to take him out. They took him out and brought in the rookie. So Hudson was at left guard. They took him out and brought in the rookie Marcus Bowe, and Marcus Bowe performed incredibly. And he was one of the guys that allowed Russell Wilson just throw those moon balls to Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. And then also a guy who redeemed himself was the tight end. You know what I'm saying? Theo Johnson was catching every ball that was sent to him, and he was doing a lot of good stuff. And then we finally saw Scadaboo unleash himself a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He did. So the beginning of the game, the Giants defense kind of was playing pretty well. And to be honest, the Cowboys didn't really get hot until like the end of the second quarter, or the beginning, kind of like the beginning of the third quarter. That's when they started getting hot. The truth is, most of the points were scored in the fourth quarter. Everybody was the Cowboys would score, Giants would score, Cowboys would score, Giants would score, Cowboys would score. And the Cowboys offense is great. High octane. You got CeeDee Lamb. He's there to catch everything. He caught 112 yards. I think he caught about 8 passes for 112 yards. Then also the Giants just do not know I don't know what they're going to do about their run defense, because that's one of the things they were supposed to solve during the offseason. They haven't done that. Javonte Williams, who is an okay running back, but he's inconsistent. But the guy was able to come in and run for damn near 100 yards against us. He had like 140-yard run for a touchdown. It was just, I don't understand what's going on. The Giants defense is abysmal. I'm looking at Shane Bowen, because the Giants invested a lot in defense this offseason, both during the draft and also in the offseason with the acquisitions they got. They brought in guys. He's got to figure out how to use his pass rushers. Abdul Carter. A lot of people said Abdul Carter played okay. Yeah, he did. I mean, I think he's still trying to figure out, like, if you're an aggressive linebacker or a defensive player, Shane Bowen was playing prevent defense the whole time. Like zoning out, well, not the whole time, but most of the time, zoning out, playing prevent defense, giving them stuff underneath. And I think he's not blitzing enough. He needs to blitz a lot more. He needs to use Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is an aggressive guy. So is Bobby Okereke. They're not like guys who like to do coverage stuff. They want to go in there. So send one, keep one back. Okay, I'm not a defensive guru, but I just think that from what I'm seeing, he's got to be more aggressive with these guys. He's got to use them. Use these guys. They're aggressive and they're ready to go. So that's why I think that Abdul could have had a much better game, but he wasn't able to do that because they were playing some weird prevent defense. But on the other hand, look, Brian Burns is showing up, is doing pretty well. I think he had 2 sacks, and then I think Kayvon Thibodeau had a sack. So again, like I said, initially, the Giants were playing really good defense and they were holding him off. But by the end of the second quarter, it was just like they couldn't stop him at all because the coverage, the defense that Shane Bowen was calling was really loose, and allowing them to get yards underneath. On the other side, again, like I said, the Cowboys didn't have great defense either, but they were able to do it when it counted. And I think it was just a pride thing. We're at home. We can't lose to the Giants. We've been beating them 9-0 for forever. We've only beat the Cowboys once since Dak Prescott came into town, right? Which was a few years ago, about 10 years ago. Anyway, Dak Prescott had a pretty good game, 361 yards and 1 touchdown. And even Wan'Dale Robinson had 100 yards reception. We now know that he can be a deep threat. We saw him getting those moon balls. Now, next week, the Giants are going to be facing the Kansas City Chiefs. Both the Giants and the Cowboys have very difficult schedules coming up. The Giants have the most difficult schedule in the NFL. They're 32nd in terms of their difficulty level is the highest. Their strength of schedule is the most difficult. And then the Cowboys is 5th most difficult. Guess what? Kansas City, who the Giants are playing, are also 0-2, and they want to win, and they're coming to New York. That's going to be a difficult game to win. Even though the Chiefs don't have all their weapons, they're still a very, very well-coached team. So I feel like the Giants may make an upset because they're at home. So they have, again, in the NFL, when you're at home, you should be a much more difficult team to play against. So there's a possibility, but I doubt it. These guys, the Chiefs, are looking for, because if they don't get it, the chances of you 0-3 teams going to the playoffs is much, much lower, right? I think it's 1 out of 60, and they're 32 NFL teams. So you do the math. The Giants aren't trying to go to the playoffs. We just want to see improvement. They just want to see improvement. I know the fans, as a fan, I just want to see them improve. The Cowboys, I don't know what they're trying to do. Who knows what Jerry Jones is trying to do? But I think they're in a soft rebuild, sort of. But they have pride, and they're a good team, even without Micah Parsons. They're a decent team. So defense was non-existent. And also, the Giants still need to figure out their red zone, how to score in the red zone. They were 1 of 4 or something in the red zone. It's not very good. But anyway, hey, we move on. Next game, Bears at Lions. This was good, not a good game for some people, but for most people, if you're a neutral, you liked seeing a high-scoring game. But the Lions came out like bats out of hell. They were very, very amped up for this game, not only because the Bears are a division rival in the NFC North, but also because they lost the first game and they wanted to prove that they could do stuff, and they were ready. And they look like the old Lions. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was running all over the place. Same thing was David Montgomery, and Goff was passing all over the place. He had a 156 QBR, which is very high. He only missed 5 passes, so he was 23 of 28. And even though the score ended up being 52-21, initially it was quite a strong game until, the class of the Lions just took over. And then also the Bears defense just went to sleep. I don't know what's going on with defense. It's just falling asleep. They did not look like the team that almost beat the Vikings the week before. They just went to sleep, and I cannot understand how that happened. But after, in the press conference afterwards, their new coach, Ben Johnson, was like, look, we need to have better practice habits will show up in the game. And I think we need to do a lot more. Ben Johnson doesn't know much about defense because he's more of an offensive guy. but he knows football, and they're just not cutting it. So, yeah, Caleb Williams better than sort of the same as last week. I wouldn't say it's better or worse, but I did like a couple of things that I was seeing. It seems like he's starting to put some of the advice and the passing routines that Ben Johnson's trying to implement in games in there. He had a very good connection with Rome Odunze, who caught for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's like they forgot DJ Moore. DJ Moore's on my fantasy, even though I like Rome Odunze, but DJ Moore's on my fantasy, and he just barely got any catches in this game. It was all towards Rome. And then the Lions figured that out and then just started crowding Rome like in the third and fourth quarter. So I don't know what's going on there, but I feel like the Bears in general need a little bit more work. And then the offensive line of the Bears should be better than this. Again, I'm going to say they should be better in pass block, because they got in this guy Tooney from this offensive lineman, really good offensive lineman, Tooney from Kansas City. And they should be better at the run. If they can get a good running game going, they'll put less pressure on Caleb Williams. And then he doesn't have to run all the time and run for his life, because he's running all the time. Even though he's inclined to scramble, which is what I think Ben Johnson is trying to stop him from doing. But if they have a better running game, then he'll be less inclined to run. And he'll run more because the running backs are running. They got to stop being one-dimensional and start, trying out new running schemes. And I know Ben Johnson's thinking about that. So they may bring in this rookie Monongai, who's more of a power runner, as opposed to DeAndre Swift, who's more of a zone scat back-ish. He's a good running back, DeAndre Swift, but I think they need more of a grinder, power runner, which Monongai is. Like I said, the defense struggled a lot. The Bears defense struggled a lot. They kept getting in their way. They caused themselves a lot of penalties. They missed a lot of tackles. And I think it's because a few guys were injured in their team. So the guys would usually have done that. And Bears are usually known for their defense. But, when you have an offensive coach, maybe he doesn't focus on that as much, And then for the Lions, they were amazing. Jahmyr Gibbs, he ran for 94 yards, right? Yeah. Then Amon St. Brown caught 9 receptions for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. And actually, he had a very good celebration for one of his touchdowns where he faked a hamstring. And I think everybody legitimately thought he had pulled his hamstring. And then he got up and started running, and he was like, psych, you know what? Amon Ra. Yeah, that was an amazing celebration. And then Jamison Williams, 100 yards receiving, great stuff. And then this rookie, Isaac Tesla, twice in 2 weeks. This dude has done this crazy one-arm grabs, right? Just crazy, like Odell Beckham style one-arm grabs. And I think he got a touchdown this time. And, right before halftime, it was great. It was controversial because people didn't know if he was in or out. Last one, he was in, and they didn't know if in this one he was in or out. But he caught that ball, brought it in with one arm like Odell Beckham, and he's looking really good. He's on my fantasy. You should go get him if you don't have him on waiver wire. Isaac Tesla. Really good kid. Now we're off to the Colts. Broncos at the Colts, and we'll be right back and we'll talk about this. All right, guys, welcome back. Broncos at Colts. Now, I saw this there and I was like, this is going to be, before the season started, I was like, and even when the Colts beat the Dolphins last week pretty badly, I was still like, nah, the Broncos are a much better team. They're going to come in there and kick some butt. And really, this game was very, very close. But what it shows me is that the Colts are ready to compete. They're not messing around, right? The Colts eventually won this. And again, this is a home game. This was at their home. And the Colts won this game 29-28 by 1 point. It was a last field goal by Schrader that got him through. The Colts kicker, Schrader, that got him through. So this was a crazy game. We were going, again, back and forth. And it looked like the Broncos had it with like 2-3 minutes left. And then I believe Bo Nix had an interception, which got Schrader in position to make a kick to win the game. But anyways, look, Bo Nix played pretty well. Last week, he looked pretty rusty. Besides this interception, which it happens, man. You're going to make mistakes. But Bo Nix kicked butt. 206 yards and pretty good QPR and pretty good completion percentage for 3 touchdowns. And he did pretty good. The offensive line, though, didn't give him as much time as I would have liked, but he still, hung in there. Daniel Jones killing it, though, man. Jeez, this is not the Daniel Jones who was on our team, right? And now he has time to pass. He's throwing for 316 yards. This is 300 yards twice in 2 weeks. It's crazy. So he threw for 1, ran for 1. And also he has a all-world running back in Jonathan Taylor, who I think is as good at almost at the same level as Saquon Barkley, and he's probably going to be a future Hall of Famer. And he ran for 165 yards and 50 yards receiving. This does not happen to the Broncos defense. Usually the Broncos defense, they shut the run down. You can't do nothing. And then they have incredible pressure on the quarterback. So I'm really surprised that, Daniel Jones had time to throw the ball the way he did. But if you have a good running game, you open everything else up. And that just shows you how good the Colts O-line is. So yeah, the Broncos are 1-1, but it's not the end of the world. They just got to figure out some things and tweak some things. It's an unlucky loss because they really had the game in the bag towards the end there, but they'll bounce back, I believe so. Next one we're going to go to is the Eagles-Chiefs. The Eagles visited the Chiefs, and Eagles win this one 20-17. Don't let the score fool you. And then, the Chiefs fall to 0-2, which has not happened in a while, or I think even while Patrick Mahomes was there. But look, Chiefs always find a way somehow to eke out wins later on in the year. But they didn't eke out one this time. The Eagles came in and just kind of, they didn't play incredible. They just scored when they needed to, and they had a game plan. And it really actually looked like the Chiefs were going to have it. And again, the home team always plays harder, but there was a crucial drop again this week by Travis Kelce, who was playing pretty good the whole time. I think he's still trying to get into game form, and he's a little older now. And then Mahomes was the leading rusher. He's running all over the place, trying to get yards, trying to get first downs for the team. I think they need to actually get Pacheco and the other running back. They need to get them in the game. They need to find a way to run the ball. They're not efficient or good at running the ball. Maybe change run blocking schemes. Try to get creative, because whatever they're doing now is not working. So they have to be able to run the ball. The reason why is because now every team knows that the Chiefs are going to pass. So they just start pulling up exotic pass defenses. And now it's all on Mahomes to use his own legs to get yardage and first downs for the team. And I don't like it when, it's not good for a running back to keep going out and running the ball. You could get injured. Even though, Jalen Hurts from the Eagles does that. Lamar Jackson does that. But the older a quarterback gets, the less you want them to run. Mahomes has been doing it the opposite. He's running more than he's getting older because teams are figuring out the stuff. What does that mean? You need a real running game. You need to have a real running game that's a threat. Pacheco is a good running back. Look, you got 3 solid running backs there. I think you can find a way to use them and rotate them and get. So if Pacheco's angry style is not working, maybe you can go for another style, Kareem Hunt style, which is also aggressive but with great vision. You know what I'm saying? And great burst. And then there's another kid there. I forgot his name. Don't use Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's not a good running back. Just don't even put him on the field. Next game is Jaguars. Jaguars were visiting the Bengals. Game started at 2 p.m. Jaguars lost to the Bengals. Bengals were at home. But it was surprising because Joe Burrow went out pretty early to a toe injury. And again, like I said, that toe injury is putting the Bengals season in doubt a little bit. However, Browning, the backup quarterback, the last time Joe Burrow, which was I think in 2023, he was out for the season, Browning almost got them into the playoffs. So Browning's not a slouch. I mean, he's not Joe Burrow, but he's not a slouch. He plays very well within the system, and he led them to this win. with a final quarterback sneak to score the game-winning drive. Jamar Chase, as usual, and T. Higgins, as usual, were incredible. Jamar Chase had 14 receptions for 165 yards. He had the work, he was the workhorse of the offense, and they can't stop Jamar Chase. He's just too damn good. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL right now. But not having Joe Burrow there could jeopardize their going into the postseason. However, Browning is pretty good in the system. Unfortunate loss for the Jaguars, but I think, home game for the Bengals. And the Bengals defense is playing pretty well. They're not great at stopping things, but they seem to be playing a bend but don't break type system, or opportunistic defense where they make plays. You can also get away with that. I mean, obviously, if you meet teams with greater talent, you may not be able to get away with opportunistic defense as much. But for now, it's winning them games. Let them keep doing it. All right. Next game, there was a little bit of trash talking before this game, and I'll explain why when we come back. Ravens versus Browns. They have history. All right. Browns at Ravens. There was a lot of back and forth trash talking in this game between Myles Garrett and talking about how they're gonna shut down Derrick Henry and the Ravens. Now, let me explain why there's a bit of animosity besides being in the same conference, right? Between these two teams. The Ravens and the Browns have history. The Ravens used to be the Browns. They left Cleveland in the 80s or 90s. They moved their team to Baltimore, who used to be the Colts in Indianapolis used to be the Baltimore Colts. They moved. So Baltimore didn't have a professional football team for a couple of years. Then the Browns team of the 80s and 90s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s left Cleveland and moved to Baltimore, and then rebranded themselves as the Ravens. So the Ravens, as we know it now, is a young team, I think from the late 90s to 2000s. And they used to be the Browns. So they moved over from Cleveland to Baltimore. So they carry that Browns history with them, and they always call themselves the original Browns. But I mean, the original Browns didn't really win any championships. They were close, but they didn't win any championships. So I think the Ravens are pretty much just themselves, the Baltimore Ravens. And so the Browns fan base in Cleveland have a lot of an animosity towards the Ravens because they were the former Browns. So that's the context. So it's always heated before these games start because of that history between the two teams. And so Myles Garrett used the opportunity to talk a lot of crap about, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, mainly Derrick Henry, how they were going to shut him down. He's not going to have 100 and whatever yards. He didn't have 100 and whatever yards. He was still kind of effective. They slowed him down a little bit, to be honest. So it wasn't entirely false advertising from Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett had 2 or 3 sacks. Yeah, I think he had 3 sacks. I saw 3 sacks on him from, on Lamar. But the game was close most of the way, but it started to pull away in the third quarter. I think when Joe Flacco started started having turnovers. I think he had 1 or 2 fumbles. I believe he had a fumble and an interception. And then this is the second straight game he's had an interception. It's Joe Flacco. He's going to do things like that. Also, the other animosity is Joe Flacco used to be with the Ravens and he won a Super Bowl with them. So there's that as well, and a lot of the Ravens people who've been there long enough know him. So, I mean, there's a little bit of that animosity because I guess, it's not that Lamar replaced him because I think he already left by that time. But, there's that as well. But Joe Flacco, I believe in the third quarter had a fumble, threw an interception first, I think in the second quarter, and then in the third quarter he had that fumble. And then, the game kind of went haywire from there. And there were some other things like penalties and stuff like that, the Browns offense wasn't really able to do so much. It was more of a defensive game for most of the time with them making, the Ravens making a scoring here and there every once in a while through a kick or whatever. But, Roquan Smith from that fumble, the linebacker, he returned the 64, the fumble that Joe Flacco had, 64 yards and into a TD. And then Nate Higgins also returned the interception to a TD, 60 yards. So that's really what swung the momentum towards the Ravens in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter. And then they started to pull away because they capitalized on these things. Bright spot for the Browns. I mean, they didn't play entirely terribly. And Flacco had the game under control early. He wasn't making too many mistakes, but when he made those turnovers, it started to go away. The Browns now have Quinyon Junkin. I had him on my fantasy. I dropped him when he had the arrest, but now he's back and he ran for 65 yards. Had a really nice long, I believe a 20-yard run where he just barreled over people and didn't stop running. And then he didn't score a touchdown, but he had a nice long run, about 20 yards. But he looked pretty good. So he might be the heir apparent that they expected him to be, minus all those things. And look, my guy, DeAndre Hopkins, keeps catching those one-handed touchdowns. Incredible. Love this guy. He's aging like fine wine. You see him, they're all over him, and he still catches these one-handed grabs that the ball just comes through and he grabs it right there before it touches the ground and pulls it in with one arm. Hopkins is doing pretty well. I like that. Devontae Walker caught 2 TDs from Lamar. Lamar threw for 4 TDs and passed for 225 passing yards. On the Browns side, the Browns, Quinyon Junkins ran for 61 yards, including the long 31-yarder. And he seems like he's going to be a guy, to be honest. And then Cedric Tillman caught a deflected pass for a touchdown. So that was really it. Yeah, the Browns are 0-2, but like I said in the past, they're not really trying to do anything. They just want to see what they have so that they can build on that for the future. But I know they want to win games. Every professional wants to win games. It doesn't matter. But, they're not trying to, they know they might not make the playoffs. They just want to show the fans something, which I think they will, despite the score here. Next game is the Packers versus the Commanders. So the Commanders went to Green Bay, to Lambeau Field. Interesting fact, I don't know if you care or not, but I'm a bit of a sports history nerd. Lambeau is named, the Lambeau Field, which is the Packers' home stadium, is named after a guy called Curly Lambeau, who was a longtime coach for the Green Bay Packers. And he was also in 1952, the coach for the then Washington Redskins. Funny enough, this was before the NFL and the AFL merged to become the NFL we know today. This game, the score is a bit closer than what the game was like. The Packers pretty much dominated this game. Yeah, they gave up a few points here and there to the Commanders, but they 27-18. I would say the way they played it, it felt more like a 27-10 or 27-9 game. The Commanders got a few scores in a little bit later, but the Packers were pretty dominant. Their offense was a bit wobbly at early stages, but I think it's because they lost their receiver, Reed. I think he has a collarbone breakage, and he's another injury-prone receiver. A lot of the receivers on the Packers are injury-prone, except for Romeo Doubs, who seems to be there all the time, which is good. Availability is the best ability. So Tucker Kraft had himself a day, 6 catches for 124 yards and a late touchdown. Packers defense with Micah Parsons, who had a sack on the day, is looking pretty dominant. And that's all I can say. They're going to contend for something this year, for sure. All right, next off, we go to the Bills and Jets. The Bills beat the Jets 30-10. That little rah-rah that the Jets had with the Steelers last week, it looked like it was a blip in the system. The way they played the Bills this week, the Bills thoroughly dominated them, especially James Cook, the running back for the Bills. He had 132 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, including a 44-yard long touchdown. Josh Allen was chilling. He was balanced. He passed. He threw. Let me get the exact stats for how many yards he passed for. Josh Allen, again, he just was chilling because his running back was doing everything. He threw for 148 passing yards because I think he threw too much when he beat the Baltimore Ravens last week for 390 something yards. And he ran for 59 yards, which was a pretty efficient day. Low numbers, but he doesn't need to do much. His running back's doing everything, and that's how it's supposed to be. Here we go. Justin Fields went out with a concussion, and Tyrod Taylor came in for him. The Jets didn't really look themselves this time. I can't tell you much, but look, the Bills have a pretty good defense. They're contenders. There's a reason why they're contenders. Their defense is pretty good. So, let's see if they bounce back. The Jets bounce back. We don't expect Justin Fields to come back to the field for another 2 weeks. So probably next week is week 3, week 4, maybe week 5, he'll be back because it's the concussion protocol. You got to be out for at least 2 weeks. All right. So that's that one. So now we're going to go to the honorable mentions because these are the main games that were the best games or the main games for the week. I mean, some other people could disagree that other games were more important. And yeah, there are. Like, I would have really loved to talk about the Seahawks and Steelers, but my producer has told me to try to make this program a little bit shorter. So I'm only dealing with 8 games at a time now. All right. So if you're a fan of any of these other teams, I'm sorry. What I got to do, maybe next week, I'll talk about your team and leave some other teams off of this. So yeah, we're going to go to the honorable mentions. I'll just go through a little bit of stats and, just say a few things and then, we'll move on to the next one. So we'll be back. Honorable mentions. All right, we're back. Honorable mentions. All right, so honorable mentions this week. Yeah, not to say that these games weren't exciting, especially the Seahawks versus Steelers. It was a relatively exciting game. And also the Falcons versus the Vikings. That was also a surprise and an exciting game. But, we don't have enough time. I'll just run through the stuff and tell you what the key points are in each game, okay? We won't delve too much into it. And again, like I said, I apologize if you're a fan. Next week, maybe you'll have more time. All right, first team is Rams versus the Titans. Puka Nacua was just killing it, scored a touchdown. I believe he had 100 receptions or so. But Matthew Stafford performed pretty well. He had 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. Devontae Adams is doing pretty well with him. He caught a touchdown there, and then Davis Allen caught a touchdown. Puka Nacua's touchdown was off of a jet sweep. So it's not a reception touchdown, but he's doing pretty well. He's going to burst out this season. They played the Titans. Titans are not a fantastic team right now. They have a rookie quarterback and also a bunch of rookies there. They're a young team. They're trying to figure themselves out. So we don't expect much out of them. Falcons, Vikings. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this one because this was a surprise. Did not expect the Falcons to out defense the Vikings because the defensive coordinator for the Vikings is very well known. Brian Flores, a hard-nosed guy. And I didn't expect the Falcons, to put out so much offense on them. And I'm surprised. It was a very exciting game. I wish I could talk more about it, but the quarterback for the Vikings, McCarthy, got injured towards the end of the game. And so he might not be there next week, and he didn't look that great. He kind of regressed, but nobody pushed the panic button yet. It was 22 to the Falcons, 6 to the Vikings. That's what was kind of crazy. And also the fact that the Vikings let Bijan Robinson just run all over him. He had 218 total all-purpose yards. He had 143 yards running, and then he also had a whole bunch of receiving. Last week, he had 100 yards receiving. This kid is the real deal, Bijan Robinson. Man, if you see the way he cuts, it's insane. But I'm not going to deal too much on that. The Falcons have a pass rush now. They invested in a pass rush. And unlike the Giants, their pass rush is already showing up. They had 6 sacks on this guy. So there's something wrong with the Vikings offensive line. They got to figure out. You should not allow 6 sacks on this. But to me, this is an upset. It's an upset. I didn't expect the Vikings to play this well. And they were at Minnesota still. It's very weird. Next game. All right. The Bucs, Texans. What can we say? The Bucs win it at Texas in the last minute. There are issues with the Texans' offensive line. They got to work things out. They're not gelling 100%. And the receivers, besides Nico Collins, none of the receivers is really stepping up. I hope they figure it out, because a lot of people didn't expect the Texans to start 0-2, but it's not time to panic yet. There's still more season left off. Baker Mayfield is awesome. He's a true great soldier. No other way to say it. Baker Mayfield is a great quarterback. And the Browns wish they had him right now. Chargers versus Raiders. Herbert, Superman, he threw for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the Chargers defense had 3 interceptions. And I'll give you a little bit more stats. The Raiders looked a bit rudimentary. Yeah, definitely looked rudimentary. Geno Smith had no touchdowns at all. He threw for 3 picks. He didn't look himself at all. I saw a little bit more out of Ashton Genty this time around, but I still don't really think he's the running back that I expected him to be. I expected him to do a lot more than he's doing, but I think maybe he's just trying to feel the NFL out. Plus, the Raiders don't have a very good offensive line. That they're not that great at running. Run-oriented offensive line. They're not that great at running. But still, I expect a little bit more out of Ashton Genty. He's supposed to perform a little bit better in this. But maybe, again, some people are slow starters, and then they need to fill the offense out. They need to know their alignment, their habits. They need to understand a few things about this pace and this speed and the professional level. So, I'm going to give him grace. He's a rookie, man. I don't care. I can't do what he's doing, so it doesn't really matter. Quentin Johnston of the Chargers is just all over the place, still kicking butt. Caught a 60-yard pass for a touchdown. He's having a renaissance period, and I'm liking it because we thought he would be off the team by this year. The Chargers defense and the Giants, we're playing them in 2 weeks. I'm scared of this defense, man. They're out to kill, but they look like a John Harbaugh team. Moving on, 49ers versus the Saints. So Brock Purdy was sidelined, I think, with a shoulder injury. He'll be back in 2 to 3 weeks. Matt Jones takes the call and throws for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. And also the score was kind of close. They almost lost this game. The Saints have been battling. I'll talk about the Saints in a second, but the 49ers won this game 26-21. Again, they're at New Orleans. New Orleans, the home team, should play harder and strong. It should be more difficult to beat them at their home, and they showed it. And I think I like Spencer Rattler as the quarterback. He's doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't make insanely big plays, but he tries to be a pretty good game manager, and he threw for 3 touchdowns. He did have some turnovers. I don't believe it was an interception. However, I believe he had a fumble or whatever. And also, they still need to work out their count. Penalties hindered them on offense. That is the Saints on offense a few times. But I'm impressed with how close they're playing teams. So it is what it is. But the 49ers are good enough to make the playoffs. And I think soon they will have a lot more of their players healthy. McCarthy's still doing his thing. Hopefully Kittle should come back soon. Let's see how that turns out. But they have the easiest schedule in the league, and I think they have a higher chance of making the playoffs regardless. Panthers versus Cardinals. Tetro McMillan went off, the rookie. Even though the team's not playing where they should be playing, this was a lot better this week than last week. Tetro McMillan is the real deal. I believe he had 100 plus yards in receptions this game, and he's the real deal receiver. 6 catches for 100 yards, and they almost beat the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are proving to be a smart and tough team to beat. They're not losing games, that's for sure, and they're not going to lose their home game, that's for sure. And this game looked a lot better for Bryce Young, even though they made some errors. But on paper, the Cardinals are a better team, so I wasn't surprised that they won this game. Bryce I think hopefully we'll start hitting his stride pretty soon. He did have some early turnovers, one interception and a fumble, but he started galvanizing his team a little bit later, and that's how Tetrol went off. And, you know, home teams should win the game, find a way to win regardless, or be very tough to beat at home. So that's always my theme. Seahawks to the Steelers. Now, this was a surprise. I never thought that the Seahawks would beat the Steelers. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more than I usually would, or I would for an honorable mention, because this was a bit of a surprise. The Seahawks were so pissed off about their week 1 loss that they went in and battered the heck out of the old man defense of the Steelers. The Steelers have issues, man. Their defense is very old. I think about 6 players on the starting lineup are between the ages of 30 and 37. Now, you're not grandfathers, but in football years, you're definitely getting there, or you are there, actually, grandfathers. And these are all top starters for them. TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay's 34. I mean, these guys, they're either first or second string or rotating in the first string era. Their defense used to be the thing of nightmares before the Steelers defense, and it always carried them through the season and would always keep them above water, and they would never have a losing season. But if another team is able to throw 295 passing yards on you and then run the ball for 105, that's like 300, damn near 400 yards. That's 394 yards. You are no longer good. And I think that here are a couple of the questions. Steelers have a bad O-line. That's an issue. They also are too old on defense. And they're not the steely Steelers anymore on defense. So it's kind of looking crazy. And now you have a 40-year-old plus quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who came over to try to win some games and get to the playoffs. But it may not happen if the defense isn't sorted out soon. And I don't know if it's going to be sorted out. This could be their first losing season in Mike Tomlin's history. So I don't know. That's the main thing. Will this be the season that Mike Tomlin has a losing season, be under 500 or under 50% wins? I mean, this could be it, but let's watch. They always find a way to get through, but I don't know. They also had hiccups on their special teams, but I think they could fix that. But I like what I saw with the Seahawks. Seahawks offense is what I thought they would be in week 1. And so I think they're serious. And Sam Darnold officially for me is now a guy. He's proper, like he's no longer Sam Darnold of the Jets. So I'm happy with that. All right, that's it for this week. We will probably get back to you next week, or I'm actually going on vacation, so it'll probably be the week after, or I'm traveling. It's not vacation, it's work travel and stuff. I do have another job besides this, so I have to travel. But yeah, we will come back in week 4 and do the show again, and we'll talk about the past things that happened in week 3 and where we're going for the next week. So I will say this. This season seems to be exciting, and watch out, they might ban the tush push. Nah, they won't ban it by the end of the season. They'll ban it for next season. That's what I think. But anyway, guys, have a good one. Watch some NFL games this weekend. I believe there's one. This is Thursday, so I believe there's one 2-day tonight. The Bills versus the Miami Dolphins. I think the Bills will win, but I hope the Dolphins play a really, really, really good game because they need to. They need to build their confidence. All right, guys, this is Sideline NFL edition. I'm Under Scott, and I'm also out. Take it easy, guys. Have a great weekend.
I'm out, bro. If it is, hey, if